Welcome back to another episode of Just Off College Avenue. Today we are going to talk a little bit more in depth about resumes and CVs with Tonya and Josh. So please, would you all mind giving us a little bit of background about yourselves, the current work that you do, and anything you might feel is relevant?
Josh, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, my name is Josh Justice. I am a 2007 graduate of the University of Virginia's College at Wise, so go Cavs, and was fortunate to come back and work here for 15 years in a variety of roles in student affairs. And now I'm over at the University of Pikeville, Kentucky College of Optometry. I'm the Director of Student Affairs and Academic Excellence there. So I work with professional students who are going out and wanting to be the next optometrist in the world, in the nation. And I get to work with them as they achieve their goals.
I'm Tonya Nations. I'm currently the Director of Career Services, Career Discovery and Planning at UVA Wise, and Josh was actually the lead for my search committee in 2022, so I've been here just under 3 years. I've got 28 years in the field, different colleges, private and public, Alabama, Mississippi, Virginia, and just so glad to be here. Thank you, Chelsea.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate you agreeing to come on and talk about resumes and CVs with the students via podcast, of course. And it sounds like you've both done a lot of really wonderful and impactful work so far in your respective fields, admissions and then career services. So my next question is, what are the biggest differences between a resume and a CV that you think it's important to know?
Differences. Well, I'd say the length at first, wouldn't you, Josh?
Yeah, I would say the same. Your resume is more of an abstract. It's not as lengthy as what your CV will be.
And then it seems like a CV is more scholarly in what it reports, more traditional, more conventional in its outline, and a resume, depending on the field, can be quite creative. Even with ATS and AI, telling you to tone it down, if you're not encountering such systems, you can use pops of color and columns and things like that. But it gives you a snapshot, a resume does. It gives you a snapshot of the last 4 years if you're a young professional, and I'd say 7 to 10 years for someone who's been in the field and is established.
Beautiful. And I know you said that usually CVs are longer. Could you elaborate on if there's a specific cutoff or what that would look like for a student who may be needing to make a CV?
Oh my! I've seen them. For younger students, they may only be 4 or 5 pages in length, but I've seen them for people who've applied for jobs that have been well established in their careers, and they've been 15 or 20 pages, depending on how much research they've done, how many publications that they've had, how many presentations they've done, conferences they've went to, because your CV just records a lot of your professional activity that you are proud of and you want to present to an employer or to a school, but your resume is not really the place to showcase that.
I agree, Josh. 26 pages. That's the longest CV that I've ever critiqued. And it was a music professor, so it's every composition, every class they taught, symphonies they played in. The list can go on, and you're right, it's comprehensive of your entire career, a running list once you've been educated formally until current date.
CVs can be very long as far as resumes go. What types of information is best? Is there a specific way to organize those that you guys recommend? And when should it be chosen, over a CV when you're doing an application?
Tonya, you want to start that since you probably do this on a daily basis?
Yeah, good point. Resumes are the bread and butter for a lot of career centers throughout the nation. But it's interesting how so much information can be found online, through a simple search, right? Type in a search engine, resume for communication majors, and then you'll see several examples. Given, I guess, a bit of advice for every kind of resume is difficult. But to answer your question, Chelsea, it's going to be your name and your contact information for sure. Your education, if you're a student, a recent student, and probably in the first 1 or 2 years of your career, keep that education at the top because it's your most recent and relevant credential. You definitely want experience pieces on there and a skills section. If you think about job postings and you think about jobs in general, whether they're posted or not, they're a compilation of skills that the employers require. And that's something you won't necessarily see on a CV that's different from a resume as well. You've got professional groups that you belong to, your clubs, your activities, your service. Those things can be added as well. And you've got really unusual experiences, meaning not as common, like military or athletic experience that could be teased out and showcase a college student's experience for the last 4 years that employers are interested in.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think when I think about a resume, I want to see if I'm looking at one for someone I'm considering for position. I want to see what all the duties and things are, that they do in those positions that they've had. I think your CV, where that comes in really helpful, is when you're trying to share more about your scholarly or professional activities. And there may be a place on your resume that you will list, conferences that you've attended or publications that you've done, presentations you've given, but you probably won't do a descriptive paragraph like you would in a CV. It'll just really be listing, what activities that you did or, conferences that you went to, whereas on your CV, you're going to have a greater ability to expand upon those.
I'll add one more thing to what Josh just said. Great point. With the bullets, it's easier for employers to read the resumes, the hundreds or scores and hundreds of resumes that they've got to review. And for just one position, it helps them read the document more easily, and more hover time is spent on the CV. But with the bullets on a resume, adding your responsibilities and your accomplishments is of interest to the employers now. There's consensus that if you've completed a project, if you've met a goal, if you have impacted some sort of change, affected change, where you did your internship or where you had your job, then that's worth noting as an accomplishment within those bullets, in addition to the responsibilities.
Perfect. CVs definitely better for if you have lots of conferences, lots of presentations that are relevant to the role that you're applying to, whereas a resume is going to be shorter but needs impactful bullets. Okay. When can they determine that a CV should be used over a resume? Is it obvious?
I think you see a lot of CVs for people who are working. They want to work in academia. You see a lot of CVs used in academia just because of the nature of the work. So again, think about presentations, think about publications, scholarly activities, things like that. Those are all going to be things that are going to be on the CV and that are going to be of interest to institutions that are hiring, and or if you're going to do any type of work in academia. I see it a lot on the medical side, so people who are in medical arts, because again, a lot of them are doing presentations, they're doing publications and things. I work with optometrists, and the amount of involvement that they have in the optometric community is amazing. And they're all the time leading continuing ed presentations or presenting at conferences, guest lecturing, things like that. And that's all things that they'll record on their CVs as professional activities and things. So I think, when I think of a CV, that's where I see it the most, I think, is academia and medical arts.
and probably other professional degrees like law. I agree with that totally, Josh. The resume, most employers will tell you, please submit resume. Some will give you an option to submit resume or CV, but you don't see that as often. Some might even tell you how long that resume should be. And to be honest, if you've got quality experiences, the maximum that you should probably go would be a two-page document, regardless of what program that you use to create it. And you want to preserve the formatting that you use and submit it in PDF. And I'll add something interesting for those who have aspirations to be a CEO of a company. There's such a thing as the executive resume. And the executive resume, believe it or not, is usually a one-pager that gives a list of where they've worked as a C-level employee and how they've affected change, because if they have the high points, the highlights of that position, then it's understood all the different skills and competencies that were needed in order to make those goals a reality, those accomplishments a reality.
Students, because they're going to be applying to different types of roles as they graduate or they look into graduate school, how often do you recommend that they update or they adjust that document or have someone look at it for revisions?
Gosh, Tonya, in my mind, I would think for me, it's anytime I do any activity that I'm learning a new skill, I'm doing a new presentation at a conference, I want to make sure I capture that. So I would say, you really ought to review your resume or your CV. If you're not doing it automatically when you do the activity, at least every couple of months, because the further you get away from those activities, I think about all the conferences and things that I go to, and if I don't capture them in the moment or thereabouts, and at the end of the year I'm trying to go back and update my materials to be able to turn in, or I get asked to submit an updated resume, which happens in jobs because there's different reasons that they need updated resumes, and you're trying to capture that 6 or 7 months after an event happens. It's hard to remember what all you do.
I agree. Students are in my office often, and when we are creating a resume from scratch, I ask questions about their experiences because I simply don't know. They've lived their lives, and it's sometimes hard for them to think back 2 semesters ago. To your point, think back 2 semesters at a conference they attended, or an organization, some sort of event that they had planned, or maybe some sort of job they had, albeit temporary, for that semester. It's a very good point. Maybe a good, take a lesson from Atomic Habits and link that thought that Chelsea, you provided, how often should you update, link it to something you already do as a college student. Maybe finals week. You're going to reward yourself after finals week when you finish by updating your resume and your LinkedIn account. That way, when you do hand it off to someone, you don't have to, give some sort of preface by saying, oh, but my most recent job's not on there. Here's my CV, here's my resume, but my most recent position's not on there. That's a little embarrassing, right? And that recent job could be the reason why they want to hire you or consider you for the position.
Yeah, and you're so right, Tonya. I think, you never know when someone's going to ask you for your resume or, your CV, just they've had a position open, or they're just interested in learning more about what you do. So, having it updated, you don't want to be caught off guard and not have your most up-to-date information ready to provide them.
Absolutely. And going on that, someone may ask for this at any point in time. Is there a specific way or place that a student should be saving or holding their document so that way it's easily accessible or people can view it on a needs basis?
I think that depends, don't you think, Josh, on the field?
I do too. I would caution, and this is a lesson learned from my professional life. Also, you should have multiple copies saved in different places. Don't save it just solely on your computer, whether it's in the cloud or it's on a USB, wherever it may be, save multiple copies. But also be cautious of having multiple copies of your resume. When you save them, you need to put the update date somewhere in the name of the file so that you know that you're getting the most updated version and you're not accidentally on one that's 2 or 3 versions old.
And then there's LinkedIn. That's an option. They have an option for you to upload documents such as your resume, but you don't want to give away personal information such as where you live. So I wouldn't put the address on it, maybe just email. And you've got job platforms like Handshake here at UVA-Wise. We're a Handshake school, and it's an account that our students can take with them. So they can upload their documents into that platform, take it with them, upload new documents, and it's safe, very safe. I was trying to think another way they could have their business card. I use Blink, BLINQ, as an app to keep my business card on there. And a business card, if you think about it, you can create it to look like a mini resume, what they call a mini resume. So that's an option as well. That's easily given at a conference. And same with LinkedIn details. You can send thank you notes and send information when you connect with someone on LinkedIn. And if you think about it, LinkedIn, it is professional social media, but it also mimics a resume.
Tonya, you are already hitting on my next question, which is amazing. Are there any resources that you suggest for either document type, or whether it's the creation or additional resources regarding their resume or CV?
Did that prompt any thoughts, Josh, my previous answer?
Well, right off the bat, my first answer is if you've not gone to see Tonya, you've not been to the Career Services office to talk with them, you need to go, and you need to go as a freshman. Don't wait until you're a senior getting ready to graduate and then knock on Tonya's door and say, I've not done a resume yet. She needs to capture you early on. So go and see her, because you want to, again, if you're trying to think back of your 4 years of your undergrad or however many years, and you don't start that process until the last year, you're having to do a lot of backup work that really, if you're utilizing your resources early on, will set you up for success, so that when you do graduate or you get into that final semester of your senior year and you're job searching, or you're going off to graduate school and you're starting to apply, all that work is done, and you're not behind where everybody else is. So, my first thought is you need to go to Career Services and work with them.
And you've prompted a question for me. I thank you for the plug, Chelsea and I welcome UVA-wise students to join us. I was thinking about your institution, UPike, and in your particular program, is there a place where they go as in professional school? For our students who eventually want to go to grad school or professional school, would they have access to folks who understand what it's like to help with a CV or resume at the graduate level?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we do. So our first year students, when you start as an optometry student, one of the classes that you have is Health Professions Leadership, and one of the very first things that they start doing is building their resumes out, because we actually have a career fair in September, and all 4 of our classes go through that career fair. So even though they're just a first year and they're still 3+ years out from being an OD, we want them to start meeting and interacting with employers and industry partners that potentially could lead to a job down the line, because they'll really start getting involved in, again, when you start going out in your professional level, the communities are smaller than what you think. And so when you go to these conferences and things and you start networking, you'll be building those relationships. And so having that resume ready, no matter what level that you're in school, is essential, because that's something that someone can take back and say, hey, I met Tonya at this conference and she's interested in, private practice, or she's interested in, industry work or whatever. We need to keep her and get her plugged in to the activities that we have here within our organization. And so, we start them right off the bat. That's one of the first things they do their first semester, is start working on their resume as a professional student.
That's great. And as you know, having worked at UVA Wise yourself, we have something called First Year Seminar, and I'm glad to report that the 8th week of that curriculum is Career Week. So Chelsea and I have uploaded a resume sample into that module, and it's a great time to just remember, as first-year students, to come by, visit us, just find out where our office is, so that when you do need our help, you'll know where to come. You won't search for too long. We're available online. We have other helpers, if you will, in the form of resources, as Chelsea mentioned. We have a web page, and at the bottom of that page for students, you can get to it from the main UVA Wise web page, but you can get help through collegegrad.com. They've got excellent advice on resumes and other things like cover letters and interviews. We've got a partnership with the Global Mentorship Initiative. It's primarily for juniors and seniors, and you can get a mentor from anywhere in the world, and part of what they do is help you with your professional materials. Yeah, it is. And again, handshake us. I mean, we can show you what's available. And if you think about it, like GMI or maybe College Grad, if you need help at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's there. You just have to know where to look.
If a student is filling this out and maybe they want industry-specific standards or for a specific occasion like grad school, do you all have suggestions on who else they should talk to? Like, of course, come talk to Career Services. Like, we want to see you. But any other suggestions just to make sure maybe there's extra eyes on their document or anything like that?
Well, I think I will say, as working with professional students, I think CVs are wonderful. And if you're thinking that you're going to apply to graduate school or to professional school, and you've done, think about UVA Wise, and they do so much undergraduate research, so you're already building out those scholarly activities. I would really strongly encourage you to, get your faculty to look at it, because they've done a CV themselves. If they're working in academia, they've done a CV. Those are great eyes to sit on it. From the professional school side, a CV, for when you submit a CV through the admissions process, the admissions committee is going to know what your grades are. You're going to submit your transcripts and things. But a CV really allows them the opportunity, when you submit it, to see what your grit and your determination is, because your transcripts only are a snapshot, right? They show what your academic record are. Your CV or your resume, depending on which one is appropriate for you to submit, is going to show what did you do outside of the classroom. Were you challenged? Because there's transcripts that I've seen where the GPAs are 3.75, 4.0, but then when you really look at the transcript, there's only one or two really hard, challenging courses. And when you think about graduate school or professional school, you're going into a field where all of a sudden you're consuming all this information very quickly. And if you've not had those challenging semesters where you've had 3 or 4 science classes, I'm thinking like organic chem and biology, all those classes together, it can be challenging. So your CV helps supplement your application in showing that, I can take challenging classes, but I can also, I did a research project that led to this paper getting published with this faculty member, or I presented this paper at 4 conferences throughout the my senior year. So those are all things that admissions committee will look for. So I really like CVs, but and I really encourage you to review those. If you've got activities on there, review them with your faculty.
That's excellent advice. Wow. Hit on all the important points and then some. So those are some nice tips. Good job, Josh. The resume, I'm glad to report that we have alumni connections that you can take advantage of that are out in the field, whether they went to grad school or went on to employment after their degree. They can give you advice. They've actually signed up to do so. We ask them as seniors, as you're graduating, would you like to be contacted by students at UVA-wise for, professional questions? And then, of course, we have so many recruitment contacts. So if you want one of our recruiters to look over your resume and give advice, that's a perfect person to do so because they deal with resumes day in and day out. Yeah.
Is there any other information, suggestions that you'd like to share with students or any of our listeners who may not be students or may be thinking about coming to school about resumes, CVs, or in general? Any recommendations?
Well, it's more of a question for Josh. Are you surprised that resumes and CVs are still around in 2025?
With the, when LinkedIn came in, I really thought, because you started seeing hiring platforms, slowly, jobs were all of a sudden posted to LinkedIn, and you applied through LinkedIn, or they would import your LinkedIn information over as your resume, and so I really thought that kind of, was going to take charge and become the norm. I'm thankful to say and glad it isn't, because I'm not great at updating my LinkedIn. So that was other great advice that Tonya provided, which was update your LinkedIn as you do your resume. But, I am kind of shocked that, that there's not been a greater push to different platforms or different ways. But, I think people like having your resume. They like it when you're able to. I will tell you, when we have students that come through our career fair, one of the things the employers love is when, and they will say is, when students come up and they give us their resume and, they're engaged with us, we walk away feeling like we've got, part of them. We know who they are because they've actually given us physically their resume, and they make those connections. I remember this student because they gave me their resume and asked the questions about, where I practice or whatever it might be. So I think there's value to the resume and cover letter that's helped it, resume and CV that's helped it, stay around.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. Once I help a student with their resume, it's easy to remember that student, the student's name and things about them. So I'm sure, like you said, it goes the same for recruiters. After seeing so many people, I'm surprised too. I'm surprised resumes are around. We've had the recent advent of AI, and people are talking about applicant tracking systems. And applicant tracking systems, I will say, it seems like they have kind of held the creative resumes back a little bit, because you've got to be a little bit more traditional with your resume for it to get through an applicant tracking system. Now, small businesses and organizations usually don't use the ATS to filter resumes, but larger corporations and businesses do. It's a time saver for them. So they're hitting upon keywords and that kind of thing, and formatting becomes a big deal, and it makes it easier for the applicant tracking system, the ATS, to read. And with AI, I know that we're telling students to look at Grammarly or JobScan or some sort of AI program that they trust and run it through AI to determine if it's ATS compatible, and also to maybe pick up on some improvements that could be done. But again, you want to use AI with moderation, and then also couple it with that feedback from people, because in the end, the resume may get you the interview, but it's that connection to a person at that organization that's going to get you the job.
Beautiful. So I'm hearing pack around a copy of your resume and or CV so you can hand it out at the career fairs. You never know who you're going to meet, right? And then utilizing AI is good, but let's do it in moderation. And edit, please go back and look at it because sometimes they don't put periods where they have other periods and it's not consistent. Please. I really beg of you to do that.
Be consistent. And I would add one thing too. If you're applying for specific jobs, so not the career fair, method, but you're going in and you're applying, read the job description and then go back and read your resume. And Tonya mentioned those keywords that, AI, looks for. Make sure you put, if they say they want someone that's had some supervision experience, and let's say you were a facility supervisor here on campus for the student center or something, make sure that you include that words, building supervisor, something, because that's one of their key words, right? Look for what that job description is asking for, and then go back and make sure that your resume reflects in what duties and traits you have, what skills that you have, what you've done, also reflects that job description. Wouldn't you say, Tonya?
I would, and I'm bad sometimes about overlooking the obvious. What's coming to mind is if you're going to be a chef and you don't mention food on your resume, you're missing an opportunity, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yes. Well, this is the last formal question that I have, but it's a little more fun. So, in the spirit of staying curious, I always ask our guests, what is something that has been either on your mind, has been in your circle, or someone has suggested to you that you would like to share with students so they can look into it?
And it doesn't have to be resume or CV related, is that right?
That is correct. No, it could be that you just bought a new Ozzy CD because he passed away and you're like, oh wow, I really need to dive in and see the whole discography, understand the story.
I recommend buying herbs and planting a pot in your room, something fragrant like rosemary, and just run your hand over the herbs, smell your hand, and just how natural and refreshing, how it cleanses the room. Try your hand at that, keeping something alive.
Yeah, and grounding yourself too because you're smelling it. Lavender's a good option too. Yes.
Oh, yum, yeah.
I would, I'll share two. I guess what I've been watching. How's that? That are actually students had mentioned to me, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out. One is if you're a Addams Family fan, Wednesday season 2, the first half just dropped, and it's great. Might be just as good as the first season, which is rare when you get to the second season, but. It's fantastic, so I binged it the other night. And the other one that a student mentioned to me is Untamed on Netflix, which is a really great, if you like murder thrillers, but it's a murder thriller that takes place in Yosemite National Park. So it's really good.
I love those recommendations. I'm going to have to check out definitely Untamed. Wednesday has been on my list, just haven't made it around yet. So for those who are listening, this was recorded in August, so please don't diss us that we haven't watched it yet. Okay, we're not that behind. So perfect. Well, I appreciate you both for coming and supporting the show, being on here as participants. If any students or anyone wants to reach out to you for further questions, what is the best way for them to do that, or your preferred way?
Email for me, nr3pm @uvawise.edu.
Yep, and I would say email for me too. And mine's Joshua, Joshua, Justice, Justice 00 @upike.edu.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Just Off College Avenue. We have had a wonderful time here with Tonya and Josh today, so be sure to check out our show description if you want to get in contact with them. You can also contact Career Discovery and Planning at any time if you have further questions about resumes, CVs, and would like to set up an appointment. Until next time, have a wonderful day and stay curious. Bye.